Repeat after me. I have no problems. I have situations. When we can reframe any issue that we face, we are shifting our negative perceptions into something less caustic. Problems now become just situations. When it comes to our acting talent or acting career, we might need to consider reframing how we feel so we can embrace our progress and not beat ourselves up. I have a 3-word phrase that helps me see another, less harmful viewpoint of myself. Well, it's so powerful, in fact, that this simple phrase can alleviate a whole host of situations. Tune into this episode of Casting Actors Cast and find out how you can turn acting and career problems into manageable situations.
This is Casting Actors Cast. Here's your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm casting partner Jeffrey Dreisbach with the McCorkle Casting Group in New York. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today on this very special episode with those 3 magical special words. If that isn't enough of a tease, I don't know what is. But first, this is that moment of the podcast, the podcast videos, where I get to say thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. We continue to grow our audience, and it just is so exciting for me, and I hope for you too as you've been tuning in. And a special shout out and thanks to those people who've written me, not only regarding the live episode that we did together, and if you haven't heard that yet, please do check that out. I think you'll find it a lot of fun. It was certainly a new experience for a lot of us just to do a live podcast in front of a studio audience, but we had a great time. But I also just wanted to say that I've received some really kind notes from folks about the most recent episodes and how it has affected them. And I just wanted to let you know that I've read your notes to me, and I'm so grateful that you took the time to reach out and tell me how these podcasts have helped you in your acting and your acting career. That's just means the world to me. And you can do the same thing, by the way. If you want to get a hold of me or reach out to me in any way, you can do a couple of things. One is go to the website, castingactorscast.com. And there you're going to find an area right on the landing page that says dive into the talent pool. And if you do that, that's going to open up some freebies for you, but that's also a place where you can leave me a note or a comment, ask a question, any of those things. And that's at castingactorscast.com. My email address, castingactorscast@gmail.com. Same thing. You can send me an email. People have also been taking advantage of the website with a free app that you can just leave me a voice message if you want. It's right there on the landing page as well. It says, leave Jeff a voice message. So there's all kinds of ways that you and I can interact, and I would appreciate it if you would do so. Also, I mentioned some freebies. If you do fill out that form that says dive into the talent pool, there's a book that's available to you. It's absolutely free of charge. It's a downloadable 100-page PDF called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the voiceover workshop for professional actors. It's a 100-page PDF all about doing voiceover work that I wrote a handful of years ago. But you know what? I was going through it recently, and although there might be a couple of things that feel a little out of date, for the most part, it really is an excellent a workshop in manual form. So I think you're going to find that helpful. Also, there's a free video called Casting Secrets, What They Don't Tell You, and you can watch that video. It's a private video only for those people who fill out the form. So the only thing I want you to consider doing, if you would, it means so much to me, if you would leave a like, a share, especially on iTunes. If there's been some podcast that has affected you in a positive way, I would love to get some feedback. The holy grail of getting your podcast successful is to have people giving you feedback and reviews and things like that. So that would mean the world to me if you could do that. All right. And finally, my shout out to my good friends at Actors Connection, actorsconnection.com/New York. I invite you to check them out. All kinds of classes, both online as well as in person at Pearl Studios. So actorsconnection.com/New York. Hello to my good friends, Colleen and Tony. All right. So you've been waiting now for the 3 little words that are going to be very, very helpful to you. And, this comes out of a long time period of sobriety that I've enjoyed. I've been sober for 34 years now. Yeah, wow. Right? A long time. And in the 12-step program that I'm a member of and I go to frequently, I find some of the little phrases that they have so helpful and so meaningful that I thought that this really has an application that's very, very useful for actors. And here's the phrase: act as if. What does it mean when I use the phrase act as if? It means that if you are feeling insecure or you're feeling as if there's something that you don't understand or are uncomfortable with, simply act as if you are not uncomfortable with it. If you're feeling nervous before an audition, for example, act as if the audition is a rehearsal. If you're feeling nervous before a performance, for example, you know this one, act as if the audience is in their underwear. So the idea here is simply shifting your point of view. And because you are a creative person, it's not that challenging for you to adopt a different point of view. And I can tell you that act as if is a phrase that's helped me many, many times. And how does it affect us? Well, it means that we can apply our fresh perspective to whatever our inner thoughts are at any given time. When we are consumed with a new experience, if we are consumed with a new group of people that we've just met and feeling threatened or uncomfortable, we can get a fresh perspective by just simply saying, I'm going to act as if this is not uncomfortable. Now, I know it sounds simplistic, and I don't mean to diminish anyone's feelings here, but it really does have it's a refreshing way to really relook at our current situation so that we are not as uncomfortable as we might otherwise be. It also means that we can reduce those anxious feelings that often accompany problems that we are faced with. And when we're uncomfortable about certain situations, it can produce some anxiety. So reducing some of that anxiousness by just saying, okay, I'm going to simply act as if, really does help reframe the situation. We can also use our acting talent in everyday life. When is it useful to act as if? Well, when we're working with others. If you have a callback, and let's say it's a chemistry read, for example, as an actor, you need to use your acting training and your acting skills to really make choices in this relationship, in a chemistry read. And it might be with somebody you've never acted with before. Well, how do you do that? Well, simply you need to adopt that acting area of your personality, of your brain, so that you can demonstrate that you are comfortable and confident with this other person. So in your working environment as an actor, you always still do that. You do that all the time. So why not apply that to additional situations? Another time acting as if is really useful is when you are making important decisions for a better, let's just say, a lens, a better perspective for your career. In other words, if you take a look at what's going on with you in your acting career and you decide that things aren't going well, it's not just a matter of saying, well, I'm going to try something different. It really is a matter of telling yourself, I'm going to act as if this situation is just that. It is simply a situation. Also, feeling we've lost control is common when we find ourselves uncomfortable. And when we can act as if, we establish a new firm foundation. Okay, let's talk now a little bit about how to properly use this new act as if viewpoint. So here's one way that you can use it. Simply ask yourself, what would future you do in the current situation you're confronted with? Make an active choice to behave differently than usual when you are confronted with a situation that you've experienced before, whether that's in business, whether that's in life. Approaching a common issue in a different way really opens up all kinds of positive choices in terms of the way that you deal with yourself and with others. Embrace the feeling of security that comes with acting as if. What I'm saying here is you're an actor. So why don't you act as if you fill in the blank? So here are some situations that I'm trying to talk about that I'm not sure if this is coming across as clearly as I hope, but here are some examples that can benefit from act as if. So when you're working on your acting, as I mentioned earlier, you just simply say to yourself, I'm going to act as if my character is flawed in an unusual way. You know, sometimes when we're working on a new audition or a role, we really would love to have some additional ideas about how to play the part. Well, understanding that your character is a flawed human being can really bring some additional choices. So acting as if that flaw is part of your character can really provide some interesting choices, not only in your auditioning, but certainly in your acting. You can use the phrase act as if with your career as well. Like, for example, saying to yourself, what would you do 5 years from now? What would you do in that situation in 5 years if it were 5 years later? And then simply make that choice and do it now. So we can project about where we want to be 5 years from now, but every day we can decide to behave as if we are that person now. And that, guess what, opens up some really amazing choices that puts you in that future you perspective, in that future you head. I think I use act as if personally when I'm feeling discouraged or I'm feeling rejected. I will act as if this is just a teachable moment to create the more successful version of myself. All right, I know it might sound a little Pollyanna, but it does really work. And it's kind of like silly that we don't use it more. Now, here's a cautionary tale. I'm not talking about multiple personality here. I'm simply talking about what we tell ourselves can be so harmful sometimes. Why not tell ourselves, our better selves, that I'm going to act as if the situation I'm experiencing is different. I'm going to act as if I feel differently about whatever I'm confronted with. And in that way, your approach and, seriously, your resolution to the problem or situation that you find yourself in will reveal itself in a much, much better way. Okay, I'm going to tell you a quick story that kind of relates to this and why I wanted to bring this up in our podcast today. I'm a pretty aggressive driver, I have to say. I have a little car and I drive in an uncomfortable way, especially if you ask my wife. And it's not that I'm impatient, although that's what it might look like from the outside. It's just that I have a very, how do I say this nicely, low tolerance of drivers that aren't aware of what is going on around them. Does that make sense? It's like somebody in the passing lane traveling at the speed limit when you know that the passing lane should be for those people who want to go a little more aggressively. Do you know what I'm saying? And there's just, and you, as you pass the person on the right, which is something you're not supposed to do if you're on a highway, I look over at that person and they seem to be completely oblivious to whatever's going on around them. And I find that pretty frustrating. I'm trying my best to act as if they have something more important to deal with at that moment. And I try to project onto others that their situation is something I have I have little understanding of. And that actually affords them a break. Now, on this particular situation that I found myself in last week, I pulled out on a roadway, and it was just a 2-lane road, but I was on a small, like, subdivision kind of road, and I pulled out onto a roadway, and there were no cars, but there were cars, but there were cars kind of far enough away that I felt I could safely pull out and make my left-hand turn. And as I made my left-hand turn, I realized that the car that I pulled in front of was coming at me much more aggressively than I originally thought. I thought, wow, that person's kind of like, I had enough room to make my turn, but now they're coming at me as if I offended them somehow. Now, I know I shouldn't have projected what they were feeling at that moment, but I kind of did. So I put on the gas. I was like, sorry, dude, I didn't mean to, I wasn't pulling out in front of you, but, you're kind of coming up on me pretty quickly. So I just want to make sure I accommodate you here. So we're driving about a mile or two, and it's just a 2-lane highway. There was no room for him to pass or whatever. So I said, okay, I'm just going to kind of go a little bit over the speed limit and just kind of make sure that this person has enough room. And if they're in a hurry, I want to be as accommodating as possible. That's all I thought. So now I turned into the store. I'm just traveling to a drugstore, and I made my right-hand turn into the drugstore, and that person decided to follow me. And then I made my other right-hand turn into the parking lot of this drugstore, and the person came in to follow me. Now, I didn't think that much of it, really. I thought, well, they're just going to the CVS like I am. So I pulled into the parking spot, and I got out, and I see about 10, 12 parking spaces away, the person got out of their car, and they stood at the front of their car, relatively close to the front door of this retail establishment. Now I'm slowly kind of going, okay, I know that I did not do anything wrong. In fact, I felt as if I was really trying to accommodate this person's need to go faster by going faster. So is this going to turn into something? And then I went into the store. The person said nothing to me, didn't even acknowledge me, but just kind of stood as if they were just observing me going into the store. I thought, that's just kind of weird. So I went ahead about my business. I went into the store. I started kind of looking for what I was looking for and, buying some stuff and grabbing some stuff. And I was kind of in a hurry, and I'm an energetic person anyway. And out of the corner of my eye, that same guy has now walked into the store and is now following me. Is now looking at me, and I could tell very, very clearly that the person was, how do I say this delicately, was taking my inventory. I think, can only project here, but I just got the feeling that they were assessing whether or not this was going to be a confrontation. Like, do I tell this guy off? Do I beat him up? Do I, whatever. But I could tell that this person was making that decision just from their energy and just their presence and watching me. And so I was like, my heart was racing, but honestly, I have to say, I didn't like go into hyper mode at all. I was just like, that's really kind of weird. And so immediately I decided that I was going to act as if everything was great. I was feeling great. I'm in the store. I'm buying the stuff I needed. I'm feeling really good. Maybe I'll get a protein bar. Yeah, that sounds good. So I literally shifted my energy, and instead of feeling like defensive or like what the hell's going to happen, I decided I'm just going to enjoy this experience in the store. So that's when I decided to act as if everything is great. Nothing is wrong. And so I think, and can only speculate here, but I think my energy changed. I think my whole perspective adjustment made a difference, because that person immediately, I'm talking like almost instantaneously, when I made that shift, turned, walked out of the store, got in their car, and drove away. It was like, not dealing. I'm not going to deal with this. It's over. And it wasn't until I got back in my car that I said to myself, you know what? That could have been some weird, crazy stuff I would have had to deal with, but it didn't manifest itself into anything of any consequence. Now, okay, that's a kind of an unusual example to be talking to you about. I'm talking about acting and acting careers and things like that, but using that phrase, act as if, honestly, turned that situation around big time. I'm wondering if you've had any of those kinds of experiences. Have you tried act as if? If you haven't, and you do try it now that you've heard this podcast video, I would love to hear back from you about your story. Maybe it's something that we can share on some future podcast. So it's important to understand that it's just not a matter of simply creating a fantasy version of ourselves in any given moment, but rather a viewpoint that is now filtered through our better selves, so that when we act as if, you know what? We're using our creativity to simply make better choices for ourselves. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope it made sense. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach, and this is Casting Actors Cast. Have a good day.
Please don't forget to review, like, and share Casting Actors Cast wherever you get your podcast videos. Thanks. I'm Megan Grace Martinez.